Today, we are diving deep into one of India's most incredible ancient treasures, the Great Stupa at Sanchi. We're going to unpack its super complex history, the really radical ideas that led to its creation, and the nail-biting story of how it was almost destroyed and then miraculously saved. So, let's get into it. Just look at this thing. It's a massive stone dome just sitting there on a remote hilltop in central India. For hundreds of years, it was this silent, mysterious monument. Nobody was really sure what its original purpose was. It's absolutely beautiful, but also deeply puzzling, and it just makes you wonder. What is this place, really? Who had the vision and the power to build something like this over 2,000 years ago? And maybe most importantly, why should we care about it today? These are the exact questions we're going to dig into. Now, to get our answers, you'd think we'd have to go way, way back in time. But actually, our journey starts much more recently, in the 19th century. This is when the stupa was essentially rediscovered, and it just completely captured the imagination of everyone who saw it. And listen to this quote from Shah Jahan Begum, who was the ruler of the region back then. She totally got how valuable it was, and she also noticed this intense fascination that European explorers had with the site. They were just starting to study it, and they were hooked. But that fascination, it was actually a huge threat. Both French and English officials were so blown away by these amazing carved gateways that they were dead set on taking one back home for their museums. The entire monument was literally at risk of being dismantled. So to really understand what was at stake here, we need to understand the world that created Sanchi in the first place. You see, the story of Sanchi didn't happen in a vacuum. It was part of this much bigger worldwide awakening of ideas that was sweeping the globe back in the first millennium BCE. This was a real turning point for humanity. All over the world, you had these brilliant thinkers who started challenging the old ways of doing things and asking these huge questions. Why are we here? What's the point of it all? What does it even mean to live a good life? It was a total revolution of the mind. And this timeline just shows you how huge this was. I mean, look at this. You've got Zarathustra in Iran, Confucius or Kongzi in China, Socrates in Greece, and then, in India, Mahavira and the guy at the center of our story, Gautama Buddha. All of them living and teaching around the same time. It's incredible. So let's zoom in on India's Ganga Valley, because that's where these new ideas really started to clash. So in India, this explosion of new thinking set off this fiery debate between the old traditions and these brand new, kind of revolutionary philosophies. The establishment, the way things were, was called the Vedic tradition. It was all about these elaborate rituals and sacrifices, run by priests, all designed to please the gods. The central text for this was the Rig Veda, which was this ancient, revered collection of hymns. This prayer right here, to Agni, the fire god, it perfectly sums up the Vedic worldview. The whole point of these rituals was to get something tangible in return, healthy cows, sons to carry on the family name, good crops. It was a system built to secure a good life, right here on Earth. But then, things started to change, and in a big way. We see it in texts called the Upanishads. The focus totally shifted, inward. Instead of praying to outside gods for stuff, thinkers started to explore the inner world, the nature of the self, of reality, of the cycle of rebirth. So you end up with this really stark contrast. On one side, you have the old guard, priest-led rituals for worldly stuff. On the other side, you've got these new thinkers, like the Buddha, who are questioning all that and saying, hey, every single person has the power to achieve their own liberation from suffering. And this wasn't some quiet academic shift. It was an intellectual free-for-all. You had teachers traveling all over, engaging in these big public debates. Buddhist texts actually mention something like 64 different schools of thought, all competing for followers. It was a real marketplace of ideas. So how in the world did you get from these deep philosophical debates to a massive stone monument? Well, that's the next piece of our puzzle. What's really wild is that the Buddha himself never wrote down a single word. Everything he taught was passed on from person to person through conversations, debates, and talks. This entire living philosophy was just held in people's memories. Talk about fragile. So after the Buddha died, his followers were understandably worried that his teachings could get lost or twisted over time. So they held this huge council where his most senior disciples got together and organized all of his wisdom into what's called the Tipitaka, which literally means 3 baskets. And each of these 3 baskets had a really clear purpose. The first, the Vinaya Pitaka, had all the rules for the monks and nuns. The second, the Sutta Pitaka, contained the Buddha's main teachings and sermons. And the third, the Abhidhamma Pitaka, was a much deeper dive into the nitty-gritty philosophical stuff. Now, writing all this down was a total game changer. It made Buddhism portable, it made it last. As the idea spread all over Asia, pilgrims would make these incredibly difficult journeys to India just to get copies of these texts. They'd bring them home, translate them, and protect them, which is how the Buddha's wisdom survived for thousands of years. And this brings us right back to where we started, the Great Stupa at Sanchi, and the very real danger it was in back in the 19th century. Now that we know just how important this place is, the story of its survival feels even more critical. So, what happened? The stupa was right on the verge of being taken apart, with its most stunning gateway set to be shipped off to a museum in Europe. But then, in this amazing twist, it was saved by the incredible foresight and cleverness of 2 successive female rulers of Bhopal. Their solution was just pure genius. They managed to convince the French and the English to take perfect plaster cast copies of the gateways instead of the real thing. Then they put up their own money to preserve the site, build a museum right there, and fund the books that would tell Sanchi's story to the world. It was their leadership that saved this treasure for all of us. So when we look at this image one last time, we're not just seeing a pile of stones, are we? We're seeing a monument to a revolution in how people think. It's a testament to that timeless search for meaning, and it's a symbol of a precious piece of our shared history, saved from the brink by a few wise people who knew just how important it was. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Every old monument, every ancient building, it has a story. How many other incredible chapters of human history are just waiting to be discovered, hidden in plain sight, in the world right outside your door?